come home, lead down beyond. Keep Almighty, I do not have to see the distant sea. One step enough for me.
Friday, the 30th of January, 1948, the flag of the United Nations stood at half-mast. For in India, Mahatma Gandhi was dead, assassinated. The United Nations representatives assembled to honor a man, not an official head of a state, not a general or a king, but a simple man, who without army, riches, physical magnificence, or worldly brilliance, has been called the most powerful man of the 20th century. And so the representatives of all nations spoke of him. For the United States, Warren Austin.
It is fitting that we who sit here charged with the grave responsibility of maintaining peace among nations should pay tribute to this great Indian leader who over the years has done so much to bring home to his fellow countrymen the moral and spiritual lessons which are essential for the achievement of world peace and brotherhood.
For China, Dr. Xiang.
In recent decades, no other man typified the wisdom and the nobility of the old continent so well as Mahatma Gandhi.
De La Tournelle for France. Gandhi, he said, Gandhi was the man who brought the principles of nonviolence into the political world. For Pakistan, Sir Mohammad Zafrullah Khan.
His tragic death constitutes as grievous a loss to Pakistan as it is to India.
Philip Noel Baker for the United Kingdom.
He was the man who said that faith transcends reason. That God has his footstool where live the poorest and the loneliest and the lost. But our conviction that Gandhi has not lived and has not died in vain.
And finally, for India itself, Mr. Gopalaswamy Iyengar.
Our hearts are filled with an unspeakable grief. A great tragedy has overtaken us, the greatest perhaps in Indian history in recent years. As a matter of fact, we have lost our biggest man. If I may venture to say so, the world has lost its tallest man, judged by all moderners.
And So the nations bowed their heads before the memory of all that had been and was represented by Mahatma Gandhi. And Lead Kindly Light, Gandhi's favorite hymn, was sung. And all over hundreds of millions wept because he was gone. Who was he then, this man, that all the world should mourn him? A physically slight man, 5 feet 5 inches tall, who wore a homespun cotton loincloth like the poorest of the Indians, sometimes weighing less than 100 pounds. A man who died possessing only sandals, a pen, a book, and a dollar watch. Who spoke simply, with no attempt to hypnotize.
Nobody will say in English. Our proceedings become protracted, and it is a tremendous task, a tremendous test upon your poor speaker to have to do justice to two languages and reproduce the same sentiments. You can easily understand that it can become even artificial. A man can pour out his soul only once. He can't reproduce the same thing twice. If he does, then it becomes a feat of memory, but not a thing coming out of the deepest recesses of his soul.
A man who led an army of some 400 million to victory without raising a gun. A man without the power of wealth or bombs or guns or physical glory. What then was his power? The clues lie in his life. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in Porbandar, October 2nd, 1869, a small state in western India. As it takes many rivers flowing together to make a sea, so many rivers flow together to make a great man. There is a time in which he is born. There is the place. There is the country and its traditions which form him. For a great man must not only come to life, there must also be a people to accept him. Here then was the house where Gandhi began his life, and the country was India. Here, as in these ancient ruins and these temples, is the memory that India was a great empire, a cradle of civilization, its beginning dating before 3500 BC. That long before Western civilization began, India had a greatness in art and medicine and logic and poetry, drama and law. But its finest greatness lay in its immense researches into the meaning of existence, the truth behind appearance. And its great men were its men with a surpassing genius for teaching and living that truth. Thus in these temples and on these pillars are records. The West found power in nature and called it the atom. India made its researches into the inner world of man and called that power the Atma. The man who lived the life that demonstrates the power of the Atma is called a Mahatma, a great soul. There was another power in India, the British Empire, epitomized at the ceremony in 1911 by the visiting Queen Mary and King George V. Here in Surat in the 1700s, they established a trading company. And with Robert Clive, who lived here, further established the East India Company. At 18, Gandhi went to England, to London, to study law. And there in the West read the two books in which he found the ideas which he felt, if used, would change history. The first was the Bhagavad Gita, known by memory in every village in India. The Gita is one of the most ancient sacred books of India. It recalled to Gandhi the ancient wisdom and beauty of his country, and he called it the book of books for the knowledge of truth. And Gandhi found the ideas of his own in the Gita to explode into the tremendous force of his life. As a building has its foundation, the universe too has its basic truth. And that truth is that there is one source of all life. It is the truth of truth. Each man lives to find that truth in himself. For this great truth lies in every man. But even as electricity has always existed, its laws must be studied before it can be used in life. And as these towers record, man can only find truth through taking action, but his own action. For it is said, better one's own act, though imperfectly performed, than the act of another, well performed. And it is that act which has the greatest power, says the Gita. But the action must be for itself, with no concern for the rewards of action. And the means must be right, or the ends will not be right. And the only right means to a true action is through love. For only if you love all that lives, be it a man, a tree, or an animal, can you find the power in it. As it is inscribed on the towers, good and evil both exist in all that is. But if you love, you strengthen the good in those near you, not the evil. Thus, truth and love are the greatest forces on earth. And Gandhi was to call their use satyagraha, soul force, truth force, non-violence. As a scientist, said Gandhi explaining this, works wonders out of the laws of nature, couldn't a man who applied the laws of love with scientific precision work greater wonders? And in London, too, he read the Sermon on the Mount. And the gospel of India and the gospel of the West seemed touched for him with the same great light. For the Sermon on the Mount also said, but I say unto you, resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And he remembered the millions of India as he read, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. These ideas and these people, brought together by Gandhi, created one of the greatest forces of the human spirit ever seen. These gentle ideas had existed for a long time. Many had believed them. Gandhi's performance was remarkable in that he was now to lead an entire nation in acting on them. As a graduate lawyer, he returned to India, was sent to South Africa, rose to great success and wealth. By 1912, when the great Indian leader, Gokhale, whom Gandhi called my political teacher, came to spend a month in South Africa, Gokhale reported to the people in India not on Gandhi the lawyer, but on a Gandhi who had a marvelous spiritual power to turn ordinary men into heroes and martyrs, and that here in Gandhi was a coming leader for India, with a new weapon called non-violence, which Gandhi was using successfully to fight South African discrimination against Indians. In 1915, it was this Gandhi who returned to India. He went all over the country. Crowds came to hear him tell of the new force, this non-violent resistance. And as he went all over India, he saw its restlessness that could be used for good or evil. He saw the great human energy waiting to be used for good or evil. Changes were in the making. Malavia, seen with Gandhi, had founded the great Benares University. Gandhi met Jawaharlal Nehru for the first time in 1916. And at Sabarmati, near the mill town of Ahmedabad, started a center called an ashram. Here in such a center, people came to live with a man whom they felt had a special truth they wanted to see in action. Here now came those who wanted to observe and follow Gandhi's way of nonviolence. For to be nonviolent, Gandhi felt, took a special discipline. The restlessness in India was growing. A tragic event increased its violence. Here in this now peaceful spot, General Dyer lined up troops in the only entrance and fired into a meeting of 20,000 peaceful Indians meeting there. Against a misunderstood order, 379 died, 1,133 were wounded. But the deepest wound was to India's self-respect. Tagore, the great Indian poet, Gandhi's great friend, cried out, "Freedom from fear is the freedom I claim for you, my motherland." Tilak, the Indian leader of the Congress Party, died August 1st, 1920. The streets were packed at his funeral. Crowds honored his superb but violent spirit. But Tilak, who had believed violent action could free India, recognized as his political heir the non-violent Gandhi. The Congress Party, begun in 1885 as a move toward self-government, now met all over India once a year, and now was the central force in the fight for independence. It began with a ceremonial parade, led by animals whose number was the number of the Congress, 52 bullocks, the 52nd Congress. Thousands walked on foot hundreds of miles to these meetings, carrying their own food, sleeping without shelter. 53 elephants, the 53rd Congress. For here at these meetings, they could see their leaders surge out to touch them. The fire in them would be met by the fire in the leaders. At times, all parties met together, but the Central Committee, the All India Congress Committee itself, was made up of 350 members, representative of every town and province. The Working Committee, central in planning and organizing, 15 members. Among the leaders who were to work most closely with Gandhi were Motilal Nehru, father of Jawaharlal Nehru, an extremely wealthy man who lived here, a man of superb integrity, who gave his money, his energies, and finally his life for Indian freedom. There was Abdul Ghaffar Khan in the center, leader of the huge, warlike Pathans, the wise Raja Gopalachari, Mrs. Naidu, a poet and friend of Gandhi from the World War I London days, Bose, who eventually was to oppose Gandhi. And there was Jawaharlal Nehru, to be first premier of the new India. Here with the Muslim Azad, who worked for Muslim-Hindu unity in the Congress. While the young Muslim Jinnah was here at the beginning of his career. There was Patel, to be Deputy Prime Minister, called the strong man of India. There was Prasad from Bihar, walking beside Nehru. But their leader now was Gandhi. Fervently spoke at the Congress meetings of the program for a new India, of the use of nonviolence. Nonviolence was a great force. It had its own laws. They must be followed scrupulously. The basis of all great changes in government came not with changes in law, but in men's hearts. Men had a more profound need to love and to be loved than to hate and be hated. The power for good in a man or government should be aroused, not the power for evil. In 1921, he began simply with spinning. All over India, speakers began to repeat his message. India grew all the cotton it needed. Indians were unemployed half the year. Why send the cotton to the English mills? Why not spin their own clothes? Industry would eventually mean home rule. Thus began the Khadi, or homespun movement. 1922, in jail, Gandhi wrote the startlingly truthful Experiments with Truth. Sent out a message of peace, nonviolence, such or by, work with him. The women were being freed. From all parts of India, they marched with Gandhi. Men and women, said Gandhi, neither can be more important than the other. Only when both are present can anything be fruitful, including politics. Neither was more important than the other. They were a peerless pair. but they must supplement each other. At the Congress meetings, women naturally understood the way of nonviolence, and it was women who served the once segregated untouchables at Congress meetings. At the Madras Congress, the signs were clearer. India, with Gandhi, was moving toward trying the technique of nonviolence. Gandhi came, his hands pressed together in the traditional pressed palms of Hindu greeting. Mrs. Naidu with the other leaders. And it was at Madras that talk went on of the use of nonviolence. It was essential now, but still difficult. But after previous experiments, they all knew it took the greatest self-discipline, a willingness to give life itself. There was a force in men's hearts waiting to be used. By the 1928 Calcutta Congress, there had been some success, some failure with the use of the technique. But Motilal Nehru reminded them again of their growing responsibility. Dominion status was being worked toward. And by 1929 at Lahore, December 31st at midnight, the leaders stood together. Dominion status had not been granted. Now they would work only for complete independence. And now Gandhi was ready for one of the great climactic experiments of his life in the power of the human spirit, the Dandi Salt March. It was in 1930. Gandhi told the people he had sent a letter to Lord Irwin, the British Viceroy, in which he spoke of his opposition to British rule, which, he said, has reduced us politically to serfdom, had even taken from the Indian the right to make his own salt from his own sea, but had taxed that salt when he had to buy it. Let there be a conference to right many wrongs, or he would start a nonviolent campaign. And he himself as a symbol would march to the sea at Dandi and himself break the salt laws by making salt. The Viceroy answered through his secretary, no conference. Powerful in the sword. Would that happen now? The marchers walked 12 miles a day on the dust roads of the countryside. Every village decorated to receive them. From all over India they began coming. Their battle cry was the ancient Sanskrit, Sachameva Jayati, truth alone conquers. With not a single weapon but musical instruments to march to, they marched. They streamed out from the villages to meet him. People knelt in the road as Gandhi passed. Women came out and placed on his forehead the mark of the third eye, the eye of wisdom. Each night they stayed at the houses in the villages, garlanded to receive them. Gandhi leading, gay, happy. Here in this peaceful march, the thousands moving in a nonviolent protest, his hypothesis was being proved. Man, given an idea he could believe in, would yet make love more powerful than hate. In every village, people came to see him, and Gandhi sat and talked with all who came, for his love for these people felt this love for them, his belief that there was a divine power in each of them. In different villages, he walked out with his followers, and sitting under the trees, he spoke to the multitudes who assembled. You will be free, he told them. This march has power, for it is truth in action. If it is truth, there is one test. Truth finally always conquers untruth. Fear nothing but to fail that truth. Injustice is an untruth. The British had said they alone could make salt, that they could tax salt without giving the right to vote on that. We must reject that injustice, said Gandhi. But only if we can love the British man and reject this act as a disease of a man whose health we believe in. The Congress leaders joined with him. Mrs. Naidu came to march beside Gandhi. Again and again he stopped at village after village. Again and again he spoke. This was a great act of nonviolence they were taking part in, he assured them. The world watched their actions, let them observe their discipline carefully. They had taken the right means, the ends would be right. They were disobeying the salt laws only after they had first given them every chance. They had tried for arbitration, mediation. That was India's way. They had earned the right now to call the act evil and to make this nonviolent protest, this march to the sea. But he warned them. They were coming closer to the sea now. Let them beware against fighting evil with hate. Not lift one finger against the British or the whole purpose of the march. The great demonstration of their truth power would be lost. The power would go out of them. So Gandhi spoke. And on they came. Women and men, children and old people. It was the spirit of the American Revolution, of the French, of the British themselves, of the Boston Tea Party. The original group of 79 had now been joined by thousands. The thousands became tens of thousands. And on they marched while the world watched. This army only with banners, marching exultantly, marching steadily, an army armed with hope and force, marching steadily, gaily to the sound of music, until on April 5th, they reached the sea. And then Gandhi marched into the sea, and from it he took salt water to be refined into salt, breaking the law that said only the British could make salt. All along the shores of the sea, others moved in, and each one took up a container and took out the salt water. Thousands upon thousands all along the shore taking part in the act. Women marched in the streets carrying seawater. At the seashore it was distilled, water evaporated, salt freed, and piled up. Soldiers came to confiscate the salt. Still more salt was distilled. Mrs. Naidu and Manilal Gandhi, Gandhi's son, led a march on the British salt pans behind a barbed wire enclosure. Even camera shots had to be taken hurriedly. The soldiers beat them down, but no follower of Gandhi lifted a hand against the soldiers. And still they came. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hurt you. Manilal Gandhi and Mrs. Naidu were arrested. And here in this hut, May, at 12:45 at night, Gandhi was arrested. Anand City. Leaders quit all British-given positions, honors. And the British began lathi charges against the uprising. The lathi was a bamboo stick. Crowds protesting in the streets were beaten back, but still the rule of nonviolence held. No hand was raised against the soldiers. None. Jawaharlal Nehru was arrested. Devadas Gandhi, Rajagopalachari. The lathi charges were continued. Gandhi's followers, still opposed, was nonviolent, sat quietly in the street under the blows as seen in the foreground. Reject the act, but do not harm the man. The Indian protest remained nonviolent. Motilal Nehru was arrested. Strain began to show. The British had little temperament for hitting a man who did not hit back. Gandhi had trusted to the good in them, their power for good, and passive resistance went on. Whole towns ceased all cooperation. More than 100,000 went to jail. Millions of peasants made salt. Teachers and students made salt and went to jail. There was no Congress session. All the leaders were in jail. By January 25th, 1931, Lord Irwin announced an end. The people in the streets celebrated. Irwin had announced unconditional release of the leaders. Gandhi was free. Members of the working committee were free. And the crowds heard that Gandhi had conferred with the viceroy and offered tea. He put a pinch of salt in it to remind us of the famous Boston Tea Party, he said. victory was theirs. Gandhi's truth did have force. The terms of agreement were announced. Civil disobedience to cease. People on the seacoast could pick up and manufacture salt. Gandhi's experiment with the use of human energy, of truth force, as he had called it, had shown results. The means had been good, said Gandhi. The ends would be good. His promise had been fulfilled. Gandhi spoke to them, and Nehru sat at Gandhi's feet as he spoke. All ordinances were withdrawn. India to confer at London in a round-table conference. Such was the victory. And the love of the people flowed out to Gandhi in demonstrations such as this world had seldom seen. He had given them peace, but most, he had given them back their self-respect. But for this victory, lives had been given. On February 6th, the released Motilal Nehru died. At the Karachi Congress, Gandhi was selected as the sole Congress representative to go to the London Round Table Conference. And the leader of India prepared for a return to the West. He sailed from Bombay August 29th, saying, "I promise I will not disappoint your trust in me." He was going back to the West for the first time since World War I. He had a deep affection for it. Once asked if he had a message for America, he said, "Yes, give them my love." Did he have any other message for the West? Only as a deck passenger. Spinning daily, with him Miss Slade, his assistant and follower. As always, his needs for happiness were simple. He loved children, was capable of a child's simplicity, laughter. And Gandhi and his party finally arrived at Marseille. Gandhi with his indestructible vitality, playing jokes. Secret Service men had been sent to guard him. He called them his family. With him his party, Devadas Gandhi, Miss Slade, his secretaries, Mrs. Naidu. On the boat going to London, he still had on only his loincloth and shawl. "You wear +4s," he told a reporter laughingly. "I wear -4s." It was a symbol for all to see that millions in India could afford no more. He arrived in England, and as always on this European trip, there were crowds to see him. Gandhi was delighted to see anyone who came, talked with everyone. East was not East, and West was not West. A man, he felt, should not glory in the fact that he loved his country, but that he loved his kind. He stayed at Kingsley Hall in the heart of the poor district, where he could talk personally with the people who crowded to talk to him. Bernard Shaw was to see him and said, "You are Mahatma Major, and I am Mahatma Minor." Indians paraded for him, even in the rain. He went to Lancashire, was met by dignitaries. It had been feared he might be attacked, because his home spinning movement had taken work from the Lancaster Mill. He went. He wanted to see all he could with his own eyes. At 62, walking everywhere. Standing in the street, he spoke, "I have not tried to harm you. You have 3 million unemployed," he said, "but we have 300 million unemployed half the year." And they cheered him. And now people waited to see him pass. He lifted their hearts, they said. He attended round-table conferences. There were 112 delegates, 20 from the British government, 23 from princely India, 64 British India, mostly viceroy appointed. And Gandhi saw separate groups being set up, emphasizing differences in India rather than a common cause. There was talk of separate electorates, English in India to vote for English legislators in India, Muslim only for Muslim representatives. As America could have been divided state by state at the time of the Revolution, India was in danger of being split into such groups as Hindus, untouchables, Parsis, and so on. Gandhi felt unity was essential. that India should remain one in common humanity, not many divided by ancient hatreds. He found Sir Samuel Hoare, next Secretary of State for India, an honest and frank-hearted Englishman. But he could not accept the results of this conference. As he left, he said, "Even though I may have to go in an exactly opposite direction, you are still entitled to a vote of thanks from the bottom of my heart." In Paris, a crowd packed the French theater to hear him. Everywhere, people reached out to see and touch a man who thought truth and love stronger than hate and violence. He went to Switzerland. Invitations had come from America, France, Germany, Italy, Palestine, Egypt, Hungary, Denmark, Ireland. He would gladly have gone everywhere, talked with everyone, but he had little time. He came now to stay with a great writer on great men, a man who was to call Gandhi a saint. The writer was Romain Rolland, who said of him, "He is simple as a child." A man of purest sincerity. He's completely modest about himself, never hides his mistakes, never makes compromises, hates public adulation of himself. He is at peace in silent meditation. This force, he felt, wasn't as strong as truth force to him. But he wanted to see everything here, too. Everything human interested him. And he walked all over, did wherever he was, and looked and talked. And noted that between nation and nation, as between man and man, force had failed to solve a single problem. But in India, the crowds seized again under a new use of British force. The new viceroy had made arrests without warrant, suspended court trials, political organizations, seized property. Again, 100,000 were in jail. Abdul Ghaffar Khan had been arrested. Nehru. December 28th, on Gandhi's return, the crowds waited eagerly. Mrs. Nehru and Kasturbai waited on the dock. Mrs. Nehru to talk about her husband's arrest, Kasturbai to be with Gandhi. Married to Gandhi when he was only 13, they had grown closer till they seemed one. And India called her Ba, mother, as they called Gandhi Bapu, the father. Congress leaders, too, waited, already talking as they came down the gangplank. Gandhi with Mrs. Nehru and the streets were crowded in a demonstrated joy and relief at his return. Bapu, the father, was home. Wherever he went, there were rejoicing crowds. Everywhere he was garlanded, the traditional garland to show honor and respect, the symbol of love and reverence. Crowds stood waiting to see him. They felt the actuality of his love for them and returned it. They had poured out to him their hungers and needs and fears, and he had become their voice. They watched from the tops of buildings. The women were holding up their children to see him. To see a wise man in action gives wisdom and blessing, it is said in India. Crowds surging forward so that his car could hardly move. The cry went up, Gandhi Ji Ki Jai, victory to Gandhi. And Gandhi spoke to these people. I have come back empty-handed, but I have not compromised the honor of my country, he said. There was a way to be free of the new harsh laws, but it must be a non-violent way. If laws were unjust, they would be disobeyed, but not capriciously or from ill will or hatred, but because an evil act, must be resisted as disease, tissue must be cured for the health of a man. And India would invite free people of the world to watch and study the progress of the movement. He read reports on what was happening. And so to Lord Wellington, the Viceroy, his secretaries took letters asking for a meeting. On December 31st, the Working Committee authorized Gandhi to renew Satyagraha, non-violent resistance. And January 4th, all India heard that Gandhi was arrested. And the Harijan story came to a climax. Gandhi had fought for these people, stayed in their quarters with them like this. These Harijan watching him had been called untouchables for thousands of years, had been by tradition segregated. Now Gandhi gave them the name Harijan, which means children of God. But now, too, he was informed the British had given them a separate vote. And Gandhi went on a fast against this, because he said it was not a political matter, but a moral one. It was a matter of the human dignity of this part of the brotherhood of India. And it was India, not the British, that should, for its own good, show respect for these untouchables. Some misunderstood the fast, and so Vitel Bhai Patel explained.
To say a word regarding the recent past by Mahatma Gandhi. It has been made to appear by the British press and the British public man that Mahatma Gandhi is opposed to the political representation of the untouchable. Nothing is further from the truth. As a matter of fact, Mahatma Gandhi is prepared to give more representation to the depressed classes than what the award gives. He objects to the method by which that representation is proposed to be secured by the award.
And on the sixth day of Gandhi's fast, suddenly temple buildings that for thousands of years had been closed to the Harijan were thrown open. Ancient buildings witnessed the end of thousands of years of segregation. All India had heard. In jail, the Mahatma, the wise man of God, was dying. Gandhi expected goodness from his own people as much as he did from the British. India trembled. The Mahatma might die. And a pact was signed swiftly by all the Indian leaders. No one, it said, shall be regarded untouchable by reason of his faith. And now he traveled for 7 months, beginning September 7th, 1932, working for the Harijan, collecting money for Harijan work, for his newspaper Harijan. It is not enough to change laws, he said over and over again. You must change men's hearts. He himself went to live and eat and sleep and talk with the once segregated people. For as always, Gandhi took the way of direct action. Truth could be found many ways. He told them every man finds his own way. His, he felt, was this way of action, not necessarily political action. He was a researcher, he told them, in the field of moral force. He had worked out his experiments in the field of politics, but now he was ready for his retirement from politics. There were 700,000 villages in India. Such village life had long been the key life of India. He would work his experiments in the power of the human spirit there now. And so he announced to the Congress leaders. And he went to live with Kasturbai in a village in the heart of India called Sevagram. And all watched to see how the Mahatma would now live village life. People of all religions came to stay there. The Congress leaders came to confer, and people came from all over the world to see him, to sit and talk in Gandhi's simple one-roomed adobe hut, the floor of swept earth, in it a rug, a spinning wheel, a soapbox for a desk. It was typical village life, nearby the ashram laundry and Wada Junction, where Congress leaders now met. Always there were visitors. With his secretaries, he answered letters from all over the world. At this center, this ashram, Gandhi was making every kind of experiment. The people of India watched his every move. He was making experiments in improving the food they ate. A cottage held a hospital where the medicine whose ingredients could be grown were studied. He was experimenting with better agricultural techniques. The 700,000 villages were 80% agricultural, using such methods of irrigation as this. Gandhi with those who came to see him walk the land, studying every possible use of the land, using the tools and talents they had. There were sugar palms which could be tapped. The greatest dignity came to the man who could create with his own hands. Sugar could be made into solid sugar cakes. Let them start with what they had. Produce and use what you produce, he said. Machinery, when the machine served man and didn't engulf him, then machinery would be good. But the spirit of the man must be served first, not the machine. Paper could be made, hand-pressed. Gandhi was everywhere, interested in everything. All action was a search for truth. There was grain to be ground. And Muriel Lester of Kingsley Hall, where he had stayed in London, joined in the grinding. These villages, said Gandhi, cannot retain freedom if they do not control the prime necessaries of life. All India was Gandhi's house. All that lived his blood kin. He traveled all over, to the northwest frontier, center of the most warlike Pathans. And wherever he went, the people came to see him. There were the Sikhs whose temple this is, on the border of the frontier. And he talked with Abdul Ghaffar Khan, called the Frontier Gandhi, tall as a leader, who had converted the most warlike to followers of Gandhi's nonviolence. And none followed Gandhi more truly than Abdul Ghaffar Khan. Gandhi still walked everywhere. He was always busy asking questions, comparing experiences. Every man had a truth of his own, from which the whole of truth could be learned. Everywhere he received gifts of khadi, homespun cloth. For still spinning was among the first of his village industries, not only the very symbol of passive resistance, but a means of meditation. As long as the peasants spin, he said, they have their self-respect and a measure of independence. This was Gandhi's meditation in action. And spinning bound India together. In the simplest village, in the house of the leaders, all were spinning, as in his house, Nehru. The act alone not so important as the symbol that all in a nation could spin. The nation was one. Gandhi spoke of this in his usual simple fashion.
The answer is simple and obvious. We have nearly 700,000 villages. A large number of these villagers are living in a condition of semi-starvation, and they do so because they have no employment for nearly 6 months in the year, that is, during off-season. That being the case, it is necessary to find some supplementary occupation for them. It is obvious that we must therefore give them an occupation to which they have been used. Such occupation is hand spinning.
And always at the ashram there were the children. No matter where he was, he always had time for them. Their education was one of his greatest concerns. Children, too, could spin. As to their childhood, said Gandhi, if parents behaved themselves while the child was growing, the child would instinctively obey the law of truth and the law of love. The true education of the intellect, he felt, should be around a dominant interest, a craft, the culture of the heart and hand, not just the head. Education of the body and the 5 senses was the best and quickest way of developing the intellect. But mind and body must go with the awakening of the soul, or the mind and body would be a lopsided affair. He attended the local scout meetings held nearby, as intense as at a Congress meeting. More and more training schools for teachers were being opened, and India moved toward freedom. But now at the Congress meetings, its leaders were facing new violence in India, new violence in the world. World War II was coming, and Gandhi was being forced back into politics. His experiments with moral force once again to be political experiments. He left the ashram. The Congress Party had become a state within a state. These leaders won the elections and were representative of the new India. There was Rajagopalachari, Madras, Kher of Bombay, Pant of the United Provinces, Shukla of the Central Provinces, Sinha of Bihar, Dr. Khan Saheb of the Northwest Frontier, Madam Pandit, the first woman minister in India, and Desai. By 1938, there was unrest in the Congress. Munich was coming, and England was threatened with world war. The leaders talked of what this would mean to India's drive toward freedom. Gandhi still pointed out the principles: the means must be good, or the ends would be meaningless. Ends and means must be consistent. India must win only by the highest means. Let's not repeat history's mistakes, he said. Let's make new history. And on March 2nd at Rajkot, for such a principle, he went on another of his famous fasts. Fasting against the breaking of a pact. Nehru announced the fast a success.
The charges of Mahatma Gandhi against the Pakistan. All the political prisoners in Rajkot have been released, and the original settlement right there between the Thakur Sahab and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel will be given effect to. In case any future disputes that might arise from
And the crowd listening had come to understand Gandhi's fast. What could a man offer more valuable than his life? Fasting was then the last resort in the place of the sword. The sword breeds hate. Self-suffering revitalizes the good in the wrongdoer rather than the evil. But only if used for good, never as blackmail. The Working Committee now came more and more to Wada. The war would come. Was India to follow Gandhi in nonviolence? There were differences in the Congress. Bose, walking behind Gandhi, was crying out, "Give me blood, and I promise you freedom." So Bose spoke.
Our struggle is no doubt a non-violent struggle. But even a non-violent struggle demands an army, an organization, and a machinery.
The questions were, if war comes, if England was at war, could India be forced to give soldiers army bases? The Working Committee was against all attempts to impose war on India. Gandhi in all these meetings, all during the war, insisted, "I do not want England to be defeated, humiliated." And so he told the Viceroy, whom he saw several times, freedom of propagating nonviolence as a substitute for war is most relevant when indecent savagery is being perpetrated by the warring nation. World War II came, violence breeding violence. The leaders discussed their moves at Ramgarh. A country fighting for freedom should be given freedom. By 1940, there was no move giving independence. Nehru and Gandhi talked. Azad, Patel, Prasad. Nehru summed up.
India has many problems to face today, but the outstanding problem is the problem of how to pull together to meet the great trials and menaces that face us. The clock of destiny is ticking away, and war and danger hover over the world. We shall have to face their consequences also, and we can only face them by forgetting our petty troubles and conflicts and pulling all together so that we might, by our united strength, make India independent.
The Congress leader Bose decided for the way of the fighter. Following him were those who were finding nonviolence too difficult, too slow. Improvement is gradual, Gandhi had said. But Bose organized an Indian National Army and led them into violent action. But though honored and cheered at first, truly failed. And Gandhi had once said to the Japanese who came for his support, "I have no ill will against you, but I intensely dislike your attack on China. You have descended to imperial ambition. You will fail to realize that ambition and may become authors of the dismemberment of Asia, thus unwittingly presenting world brotherhood, without which there can be no hope for humanity." England sent Sir Stafford Cripps on March 22, 1942, to confer with the Congress leaders. Gandhi arrived at the meeting. Now 73, he leaned usually on members of his family, whom he jokingly called his stick. Gandhi came to only one meeting. The Cripps offer included a statement that steps would be taken after the war stopped toward a new constitution. Gandhi called this a post-dated check and left not to return. But Jinnah, leader of the rising Muslim leagues, was there. The brilliant Rajagopalachari, Nehru. Crowds waited to hear what Gandhi would do and say. And Gandhi said now to the British, "There is nothing else. Quit India." Quit India was chalked in the streets. The English used tear gas. The rest of the Indian leaders, including Gandhi. With him to jail went Desai, whose tomb this is. His ashes lie here. For Mahatma Desai, 24 years as secretary and friend, died in jail. Here too was buried Kasturbai. On February 22, 1944, Kasturbai, his wife, had died, her head in Gandhi's lap. 62 years they had been together. She had become, said Gandhi, truly my better half. Tagore, one of his greatest friends, too was dead. Seen here at the end of his life, He had predicted that with independence, East and West would unite in India. Country with country, race with race. Then will the history of India come to an end, merged in the history of the world, which will begin. On May 6th of 1944, from this prison, Gandhi was unconditionally released. It was his last jail sentence. During his life, he had spent 2,388 days in prison. Many waited to see him released. On his release, he went to stay at the seashore near Bombay. He was ill, showed the results of the prison fast, of the deaths of his wife and friend, of the growing violence in India, the turning of Muslim against Hindu, Hindu against Muslim, but still he went on working, searching for truth. Endless patience and tolerance was necessary to a searcher for truth. He held meetings for prayer. Our bodies are the real temples rather than buildings of stone, he said. He went to Jinnah's house. If Jinnah would not come to Gandhi, Gandhi would go to Jinnah. But Jinnah was moving toward partition of India. Gandhi pointed out the strength in unity, the weakness that would come from disunion. Let India try marriage before divorce, he said. England, beset in Asia, sent a new mission, the cabinet mission. There was Alexander, First Lord of the Admiralty, Sir Stafford Cripps, Lord Pethick Warren, Secretary of State for India, Indian leaders from all parts of the country. Jinnah for the Muslim League, Indian princes, Sikhs, Gandhi. Outside the Viceroy's palace, India waited. Would there be freedom? Would it be the freedom Gandhi would feel meant real freedom for India, or only an illusion of freedom? What are the Congress leaders, Azad, Nehru? The meetings went on. Lord Wavell, the Viceroy, in the foreground, but no definite results. The cabinet mission then invited the Congress and Muslim League to a conference in Simla, the summer capital. Azad was there. Cripps, Patel, Jinnah for the Muslim League, Nehru. And on May 16, 1946, this cabinet mission offered a plan for the ending of British government in India. Gandhi found it the best the British could do under the circumstances, but the Congress Party and the Muslim League did not agree. And at Bombay, the All India Congress Committee debated acceptance of British plans for a free constitution. Gandhi sat spinning. He was for trusting the British. The leaders spoke. Gandhi believed the Constituent Assembly would work out India's framework to be an independent democracy within the British Commonwealth. It would be no bed of roses on itself, but the Congress must not shirk it. Jinnah refused all part in an all-India government. On August 12, 1946, Lord Wavell commissioned Jawaharlal Nehru to form the new government. And as Premier, he now reviewed the troops at the frontier. Gandhi sent his wish that Jawaharlal would live long as the jewel of India. Jawahar meaning jewel in Hindustani. But Gandhi himself was on a third-class train. Violent riots had broken out. Muslims and Hindus were killing each other. Gandhi was heartsick. He went out to speak to the people himself. He was warned that he was in danger from fanatic Hindus and fanatic Muslims. A bomb, a knife would kill him. On he went. I will go as a friend of the Muslims as of others, he said. My life will be at their disposal. Men were more permanently good than evil, he believed. The right action contained its own propaganda. He would go to Noakhali himself, a district 80% Muslim. Barefoot, as on a pilgrimage of penance, he would walk from village to village, live with the Muslims. He was 77. He went to Behar, 80% Hindu, got up every morning at 4, walked 4 miles. Abdul Ghaffar Khan went with him. Everywhere were the signs of death and hatred. Except Pakistan, the signs read. Still he went on. He stayed with Muslims. Wasn't he a Hindu? I am Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Jew, Parsi, he said, as he had always said. What was the cause of the riots? The idiocy of both communities, he told them. Why didn't he go to the leaders? Why had he come to them? Neighborhood peace will reach to the leaders, he said. At his meetings for prayer, the Bible, the Koran, the Talmud, the Gita were all read. The riots quieted. If you ever want to become mad again, you must destroy me first, he warned. Meanwhile, Nehru and Jinnah flew to England for a special conference with Prime Minister Attlee. Jinnah was now holding out for partition and a Muslim state. Nehru returned. Jinnah had said, as long as I live, I will never accept a united India. Constituent Assembly met, but without Muslim League representation. Radhakrishnan, the philosopher, Nehru, the leaders, all signed and ratified 2 years later a constitution along Swiss and American lines, which began, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic." Lady Mountbatten and Lord Mountbatten, the last viceroy, arrived to arrange a peaceful transfer of power into Indian hands. The guard lined up before the palace. The crowds were wild with joy. India was free. Independence Day had come. The viceroy and Lady Mountbatten, representatives of what could have been an enemy country, made bitter by shedding of blood, rode smiling through the streets, and the people cheered, for England and India were friends. And these were the people whom Gandhi had led into the first victory by a nation of nonviolence. These were the people who had risen higher in the use of nonviolence as a force than any in the world. These were the people who had followed Gandhi in believing that the human spirit is more powerful than tanks and aircraft. They were all there. The hundreds of thousands who had gone to jail, the volunteers, the women freed, the women of whom Gandhi had always said, "The women are with me." The thousands who'd been with Gandhi, who had watched his fast, his actions. The people in the villages, the teachers, all were there. On the platform sat Nehru, whom Gandhi had called son, who called Gandhi father. And so Independence Day came to India, and the flag of freedom flew. And there was jubilation and rejoicing and prayer. And everywhere the lights were lit. In the towers, the streets, the buildings, on the flag with the spinning wheel of freedom. The Jai Hind, the lights which spelled out victory to India. And in the center of the spinning wheel, Gandhi. But Gandhi had not been at the ceremony. Pakistan had been declared a separate state. Gandhi spent the day fasting and praying for harmony among the people of India. He sent no message. His thoughts were turned inward. At the prayer meeting, they sang the Ram Nam, while Gandhi wondered, had he led his people astray? But he was to see proof that he had not. For on the day the British left India, Gandhi saw a country that had come as a conqueror leave as a friend. Guns had not been raised against the British. The army against them had been the nonviolent army of the Dandi Salt March. And that which was good and merciful in an Indian had met with what was good and merciful in an empire. And they parted at peace. And on the earth they shed, there were few seeds of bitterness to grow bitter fruit. Gandhi appeared now as the father of his country. People thronged to see him at his meetings for prayers. He answered questions. Give the people the opportunity of committing mistakes and learning from them, he counseled. Each man must live by his own truth. Did he have visions, he was often asked. Nothing special to me, he said. All would find their own truth if they would only listen. God only appears in action. He went on a fast, his last, for Muslim-Hindu unity. As Gandhi took his first sip of juice after the fast, the cries rang in the streets, "Down with communal strife! Hindus and Muslims are brothers! Save the Mahatma!" But the Mahatma was not destined to be saved. He had been staying at Birla House. Each day he held his meetings for prayer. A bomb had been thrown some 10 days before at Gandhi, but he had refused protection. His only wish now was to die without anger and with the name of God on his lips. And so on January the 30th, 1948, at 5 minutes past 5, Gandhi went from Birla House to his prayer meeting. And a man who feared Gandhi's way stepped forward, bowed to Gandhi, raised a gun, and fired. Gandhi fell. "Hey Rama," he whispered. It was the name of God. And so Mahatma Gandhi finished with this life. They dressed him in the loincloth, draped the flag of free India over him. The women wept. 200 men of India pulled the carrier with his body on it. The procession moved out and onto the road to Raja. It took 5 hours for the procession to go 5.5 miles. Prayers arose. All India wept. At Rajghat, the body burned for 14 hours. The Gita was read. Truth and love, the Gita had said to Gandhi those 60 years ago. The ashes were gathered, put in urns, and sent to 6 continents and to all parts of India. 14 days later, by ancient ritual, there were final ceremonies in all India. Chief was at Allahabad, the sacred place where the 3 sacred rivers met. The urn with the ashes moved slowly, so slowly. The heart of India seemed hardly to move. The light, said Nehru, has gone out of our lives, and there is darkness everywhere. The Congress leaders rode beside the urn. Azad, Mrs. Naidu, Patel, Gandhi's sons. But Nehru had gone on to say, I was wrong. For the light that shone in this country was no ordinary light. The light that has illumined this country for many, many years. And 1,000 years later, that light will still be seen in this country. And the world will see it. And it will give solace to innumerable hearts. For the light represented the living truth, taking this ancient country to freedom. Truth and love, Gandhi had said, are the greatest forces in the world. The urn with Gandhi's ashes came now to the place of the meeting of the rivers. Planes flew over, dropped rose petals. The urn was removed from the carrier. Slowly they carried it, slowly, gently. They brought it to the edge of the river. And those who loved and worked and lived with Gandhi went with it on a boat out into the river. And the people of India stood on the banks of the river. And so it was all over India. The ashes were brought to a sacred place and given to the rivers and to the land. In jail, Gandhi had written, "In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists. Hence I gather that God is life, truth, love." The experiments Gandhi worked on all his life go on.
रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान रघुपति राघव राजा